Hello, my dear students. Today I'll discuss all the important questions and answers from the chapter Indigo. This chapter is excessively based on historical events of India. This will not only prepare you all for the examination but also clears all the confusions regarding the historical events that are mentioned in the chapter. So, without wasting time, let us begin. And let me tell you another thing before starting my video, that the video is going to be a bit lengthy because I have included all the important questions from the examination point of view. Therefore, don't skip any question answers. Let's begin. Our first question is, what is the theme of the chapter? Here you should mention, it was an unequal battle between an oppressed and the oppressors. In spite of all odds, the oppressed are able to foil the wicked designs of the avaricious or greedy landlords. Truthfulness, sincerity of purpose, and untiring efforts of Indian leaders as well as masses eventually bear fruit. Here, you must mention all the hard works which was done sincerely to win the battle. And even though it was not possible at that time, from the peasant's point of view, Gandhiji made it possible because of his hard work. Next point, spell the triumph of the campaign against unjust and callous Britishers. This chapter talks about victory of oppressed people over unjust and callous Britishers. Let's move to the next question. Message of the chapter. Patience, perseverance and determination helps overcome odds and adversities is one of the themes of the chapter, one of the messages of the chapter. Next is, be focused while solving the problem and don't see focus on the problems. Be self-reliant. It teaches people to be courageous and enabled to fight their battle independently and fearlessly by themselves. Next question. Why is Rajkumar Shukla described as being resolute? Here, Rajkumar Shukla, unsung hero, was illiterate and oppressed indigo farmer, and this is the story of Champaran. He wanted Gandhiji to come to Champaran and solve their issues. Here, Rajkumar Shukla tried persistently to bring Gandhiji to Champaran, but because Gandhiji was famous and he was very much busy in solving other issues and attending meetings, he was not able to come along with Rajkumar Shukla initially. But when he persistently ran after Gandhiji, then he was bound to come with him and understand his problems. Eventually, tenacity of the resolute man bore fruit, and after Gandhiji's Calcutta visit, both of them went to Patna. Why do you think the servants thought Gandhiji to be another peasant at Rajendra Prasad's house? Rajkumar Shukla was a familiar face for Rajendra Prasad's servants because he often visited their master. Now, why did he visit? Because Rajendra Prasad was also an advocate, and Rajkumar Shukla thought that he is going to solve his issues, but it was not so. Rajendra Prasad could not solve their problem because the battle was huge and it was not possible for an individual to fight against Britishers. Next point you should write is, Gandhiji was also in his company wearing loincloth. Because of that, he was mistaken by the servants as he was also a peasant. Humility also led to his mistaken identity. Next question is, list the places that he visited between the first meeting with Shukla and his arrival at Champaran. He was expected in Kanpur and he had to visit many parts of India, after which he returned to his ashram near Ahmedabad. but only after Calcutta conference he came to Patna, then Muzaffarpur, and finally he visited Champaran. What did the peasants pay the British landlords as rent? What did the British planters now want instead and why? What would be the impact of synthetic indigo on the prices of natural indigo? Here the points are: the entire harvest of indigo they had to submit to the Britishers because it was the chief commercial crop, and 15% of the land was paid as a rent to the British landlords. Now that Germany had developed synthetic indigo and brought a steep fall in indigo prices, the landlords were very cleverly wished to give up this agreement and get a compensation for releasing the farmers' land. Here, students, you need to understand that farmers had to engage 15% of their land for growing indigo, okay, and this was their rent, all right. But once they understood that artificial indigo was developed by Germany and natural indigo's prices are going to steep down, therefore they had cleverly asked peasants to pay compensation because they don't have to engage their land for indigo anymore. So this was the agreement. Next question: why did Gandhiji agree to a settlement of 25% refund to the farmers? In order to break the deadlock between the landlords and their tenants, that is peasants. He did so. What mattered more to him was the moral victory of the farmers in making the landlords own their dishonesty and surrender the money as well as their pride. Here, he was happy with only 25% because this money does not matter, but what matters is their moral victory. Now, this was the first time in Indian history that Britishers bowed down in front of an Indian leader. How did the Champaran episode change the plight of the peasants? First of all, you should mention it released the peasants from the mortal fear of British landlords. Earlier, they were extremely intimidated by Britishers and they could not act against this powerful ruler. They were made aware of their rights, learned courage as well as 25% of the commission, plight of exploited peasants transformed. Here, condition of peasants were transformed. Now they were gradually changing their life to betterment. Why do you think Gandhiji considered the Champaran episode to be a turning point in his life? Here, it began as an attempt to fight injustice against the hapless peasants. Later, it turned out to be Gandhi's loud and clear pronouncement that Britishers could not order him about in his own country. It initiated the meek and mute masses into courage. It established the efficacy of non cooperation as a means of fighting injustice. These are the benefits which marked turning point in the life of Mahatma Gandhi. How was Gandhiji able to influence lawyers? Gandhiji's sincerity of purpose, convincing argumentation, and a logical approach made it possible. Not only that, he cheated lawyers for overcharging to patients. Their charges were very high. That is why patients, what they will do, they will earn their living for their survival or they will pay huge charge to go against Britishers. This was illogical. That is why Gandhiji cheated lawyers for not helping their own countrymen. Next point, he encouraged for court arrest. Now here Gandhiji, because he was totally focused on solving the issue of Champaran, he made lawyers convinced for court arrest as well. He discouraged seeking help from Mr. Andrew and asked them to become self-reliant. Mr. Andrew wanted to stretch help to the ashram to Gandhi, but Gandhiji vehemently denied because it will show that Indians are weak in front of Britishers. Next question. What was the attitude of the average Indian in smaller localities towards the advocates of Home Rule? Now, here you need to understand that because of extreme fear from Britishers, Indians refrained from showing any sympathy for the advocates because these were the advocates who were filing cases against Britishers. Now, few could dare to volunteer to harbor them. Now, here they were very much fearful of the torture, and there were only few who were courageous to take side of truth. That is why there were only few who dared to volunteer to harbor people like Gandhiji. How do we know that ordinary people too contributed to the freedom movement? The first point will be freedom movement is not only saga of the contribution of prominent patriots. It is also a story of the sacrifices of countless unknown and unsung heroes like Rajkumar Shukla and Champaran peasants. They fearlessly fought against British tyranny. They supported Gandhiji against the high handedness of the authorities, thus, accentuated their contribution to the freedom struggle. Support and solidarity played crucial role in winning the first civil disobedience in India. Now, because of people like Rajkumar Shukla and others, it was possible. This was not the task of only handful of eminent leaders and lawyers. Needed support and which was given by Champaran peasants, and that is why this was a win over corrupt and callous Britishers. Freedom from fear is more important than legal justice for the poor comment. Securing legal justice in one single specific episode would have resulted in limited short term benefits, but getting over perpetual fear of the oppressor brought a permanent attitudinal change. Now, here we need to understand that fighting with Britisher was another thing. That was one time business, but getting out of fear was very important for Champaran peasants, and this is what Gandhiji did to Champaran people. He snatched fear, giving courage to peasants, because of which they fought their battle individually. Next question. Why did Gandhiji visit Muzaffarpur on his way to Champaran? Who received him there? Rajkumar Shukla had given a fairly detailed account of injustice meted out to the Indigo sharecroppers. But that was not enough, okay? Gandhiji needed more information to have better insight into the problem. It is obvious that unless and until he understands both the sides' point of view, both the sides' evidences, he can never be able to fight in an accurate manner. Therefore, in order to gather more information, he went there, and he was received by J.B. Kriplani and a large number of his students. Why did Gandhiji meet the secretary of the British Landlords Association on arriving in Champaran? Fair, just, and meticulous as Gandhiji was, He wanted to hear both sides of the story. In order to get the facts and understand the viewpoint of the landlords, he went there. But the meeting proved to be futile as the secretary refused to reveal any information to an outsider. Here we need to understand that in order to save themselves, Britishers did not show any information to Gandhiji on flimsy pretext that he is an outsider. Basically, Gandhiji is from Gujarat, and according to them, Champaran problem was not Gandhiji's business. Therefore, they did not show any secret, any document to Gandhiji. Next question. Why did Gandhiji call on the British official commissioner of the Tirhut division? Here, the answer is the uncooperative attitude of the secretary of the British Landlords Association prompted Gandhiji to contact them. Unless they met, but the meeting was useless. Authoritative commission here. British commission was very authoritative and they tried to bully Mahatma Gandhi. Not only that, they advised to Gandhiji to leave Tirhut as soon as possible. Give a brief account of the reception that Gandhiji got in Motihari. Disregarding Tirhut British official commissioner's instructions, Gandhiji proceeded to Champaran's capital Motihari. He started operating from a house there. People received him enthusiastically. I told you why. He was not only a barrister but he was Indian as well who could help them in solving their problems. But he was stopped from visiting a nearby village by the police. He was driven back and served with an official notice to quit Champaran. Next question. How were the Britishers shown that their dreaded and unquestioned authority could be challenged by the Indians? When Gandhiji was summoned to the court for flaunting or refusing to obey the official orders to quit Champaran, the peasants in thousands flocked the courtroom to support Gandhiji. The crowd became unmanageable. This showed strength and solidarity. Next question. What argument did Gandhiji give for not complying with the official orders to quit Champaran? Here you should write he was not he had not flouted the official orders, nor he intended to break the law, but to render humanitarian and national service by helping Champaran peasants. He did this with the intention of obeying the higher law of being the voice of conscience. What made Mahatma Gandhi declare the Battle of Champaran is won? When lawyers reconsidered their decision about their course of action in the event of Gandhiji's arrest, and they volunteered the court arrest for the cause of the sharecroppers. Here, Gandhiji was to be put into jail for supporting Champaran people, but here lawyers were ready for the court arrest. Gandhi was pleased and he expressed his satisfaction with these words. Here, first of all, barristers and lawyers were not cooperative in India, but after the arrival of Gandhiji, they also learned sacrifice. They also learned to save their country's reputation. Mahatma Gandhi was satisfied with their work, and that is why he said the Battle of Champaran was won. Champaran is won. It is because, first of all, they were ready to fight against Britisher, and this shows they don't have any fear in them anymore. Why did Gandhi stay on in Champaran even after the sharecroppers problem was solved? Here he wanted the cultural and social uplift of the poor and backward villagers. Illiteracy, insanitation and ill health needed to be fought against. Students, Gandhiji had come to solve the issue of Rajkumar Shukla and other Champaran people. But here, when he looked at the condition of ladies and houses of their family members, he wanted to teach them health and hygiene lessons. That is why he had made this decision. How did Gandhiji keep a distant watch on the ashram? Answer: he sent regular instructions by mail, checked financial accounts. He also gave specific instructions regarding individual problems. Example: he ordered the digging of new latrine trenches after the old one gets full. Why did Gandhiji object to Charles Frere Andrews' stay in Champaran? Here, Gandhiji vehemently opposed the lawyer's move to enlist Andrews' help. Because he was an Englishman, it would reveal that the lawyers were weak, and by this he wanted to teach self-reliance to all the people. Why did Gandhiji consider freedom from fear more important than legal justice for the poor peasants and Champaran? Here, the ruthless exploitation of the poor farmers by the landlords of Champaran prompted the former to fight endless legal battles against the landlords with the help of eminent lawyers. However, the battles were inconclusive. Here, terror stricken peasants had no voice to raise and no respite in the court against the unfair dealings of the landlords. Gandhi calculated that peasants can never get justice. It was imperative to teach these downtrodden farmers how to be courageous. Let's look at the answer. Until and unless they got over the terror of the Britishers, they would never experience any sense of relief, he realized. He empowered and emboldened peasants before legal battles. Next question. What did Gandhi do with regards to the cultural and social backwardness of the Champaran villages? After solving Champaran Indigo issues, he focused his attention on the social and cultural background. He appealed for volunteers. Several youth and enthusiastic people came forward. Mahadev Desai and Narhari Parikh, along with wives, joined the Help Open Primary School in 6 villages. Here, Devdas, son of Gandhiji, Kasturbai, wife of Gandhiji, also joined him and extended their help. He taught rules and personal cleanliness to the people. Doctors joined the project too. Gandhiji began the mammoth task of rebuilding the nation. On the basis of your reading of Indigo, bring out Gandhiji's unassuming character and the values that he nurtured. Indigo highlights many values that Gandhiji nurtured and the stirring traits of his multifaceted personality. His comment on the victory of civil disobedience movement was, "What I did was a very ordinary thing," also speaks of his unpretentiousness, a value that he regarded to be very important. Next point is, however, he didn't let his utmost humility to be mistaken for his weakness. However, whenever the occasion demanded, he gave proof of his unparalleled fearlessness. Neither the British officers nor the orders could intimidate him. Discreet and judicious as he was, the long-term impact instead of running after short-term gains. A complete man lived life to the fullest. Having a humanitarian approach, he didn't mind braving hardships. A self-confident man like Gandhiji looked for self-reliance and never took advantage of his social contacts. Not only that, let's move to the next last point. All these moral values made a perfect human being who drew crowds wherever he went.